cannot think of a topic that I get more intense about than sales and marketing alignment because I cannot.
You're not going to change the behavior of a 20-person sales team overnight.
When you introduce tiers for accounts, you're almost introducing 3 go-to-market motions or go-to-market strategies.
We have a shared pipeline goal that is shared across all of go-to-market.
I think a centralized Rev Ops team helps with marketing and sales alignment when you have one team that is thinking about that from a more holistic perspective and thinking about just the full funnel and the full business.
Marketers are flexible like cats.
I think we're in the messy period right now where it's a little harder because there's so much change at once. Welcome to Dear Marketers, produced by MKT1 and Caspian Studios in partnership with Typeform. This is a show where me and some of my closest marketing friends answer questions from you. Hey Grace, hey Devon, thanks for coming back for part 2. This is our first and probably our only 2-part episode of Dear Marketers. So if you haven't listened to episode 5, you might want to. We're talking about sales and marketing alignment. And again, I have Grace back again. Grace is the head of revenue or the VP of revenue at Cocoon. So she is basically sales and marketing alignment personified. She leads partnerships, sales, marketing, the whole shebang. And then we have Devon back again. She's the head of product marketing and partnerships at Mercury. Kira from Valence asked us such a good question that we felt like we needed to take 2 whole episodes to answer it. In episode 5, we did our first ever segment, Help or Hurt, which we will continue today. And we talked all about sales and marketing alignment. And we're going to do the same exact thing right now. But first, I think we should replay Kira's question from episode 5 to just set the stage. So we're going to go to Typeform, resurface that question, get the video from Kira, and play it.
Dear marketers, I'm Kira. I'm head of marketing and growth at Valence. We're a Series A SaaS company building an AI coach for enterprise. We have a lot changing in go-to-market at Valence. We are transitioning to an ABX model. We're bringing in a ton of new tools and bringing in new teams across both Rev Ops, marketing, and sales. Do you think all of these changes at Valence and across the go-to-market function in general are making it harder or easier for sales and marketing to stay aligned?
Thanks again for your question, Kira. We're going to get to the answer in just a second, but first, let me tell you about our partner, Typeform. Thanks to our partner, Typeform, which has been my go-to form builder for years. We use it at MKT1 and Dear Marketers, and of course, if you need to submit a question for us to answer here on Dear Marketers, we have a Typeform for that. It's branded, it's not a dull, traditional form. You can find the link to that form in the show notes. You can also use Typeform at your company, too. Use it to collect leads, gather feedback, and do research. There are templates to help you get started. They have video forms, and you can use code MKT1 to get 20% off their annual growth plan. All right, Grace and Devon, let's continue our Help or Hurt segment that we started in last episode. We're talking about if these topics help or hurt sales and marketing alignment. We started with SDRs in episode 5, and now we're going to move on to ABX. We decided last episode that SDRs reporting into marketing actually helps sales and marketing alignment. We'll figure out if we think ABX and a few other topics like variable comp and attribution help or hurt. And so first, let me explain what the hell ABX means. I often call it account-driven go-to-market, which just means that you're using an underlying foundation of mapping out your accounts and then systematically going after those across all go-to-market efforts. Wow. That's what happens after you write 15,000 words on something. You can just spit out a line like that off the cuff. Does it help or hurt marketing and sales alignment in 2025 and beyond?
Helps.
When done right.
This is the age-old thing, right, is that sales isn't happy with the quality of leads for marketing. I do think account-driven go-to-market strategies help that, again, when done correctly. If you truly identify your target accounts thoughtfully and you're truly aligned on what those are, then there's a lot less sort of finger-pointing and complaints about quality when you kind of have a pre-decided what quality looks like.
What I'm seeing right now, though, if I'm talking about, I think it's going to help in 2026. I think it's hurting right now. It's hurting because it's making the rules of engagement stuff change so fast. So if you do this right, you typically have a tier 1. That's like your traditional ABM. You can kind of figure out how to do that. Sales might even like own pipeline for that more. You can kind of figure out how that should work. more sales driven motion than a marketing driven motion, but you're actually introducing, when you introduce tiers for accounts, you're almost introducing 3 like go to market motions or, go to market strategies. And because of that, it just makes it more complicated. So tier 2 might be that marketing is using, modern tooling and some SDRs or some, tools to do like one to many or one to a few, but still personalizing and using these tools and doing the outreach. And that's like a different motion now. And if depending on where SDRs sit, that gets confusing. And then tier 3, you're usually still relying on inbound. So that's easy. So it's really this tier 2 thing that is causing a lot of confusion, which is this mix of like the new tools and the new form of what an SDR or go-to-market engineer is. So I think it's hurting. Is it helping organizations? Is it helping you drive more growth? Like, maybe right now. That wasn't the question. The question was, is it helping or hurting with alignment right now? And I think we have a ways to go to make it help with alignment. I think it's just causing a lot of confusion. And that's why I wrote 15,000 words on it, to be honest, because it's causing a lot of confusion. And I think it's hurting right now. What a nuanced take. What do you all think?
I guess what should people be doing instead then? Like, is the existence of the like account lists the thing that's hurting, or is it actually the
what to do with it?
It's what to do with the account list, which is you need to, once you have the account list, you're basically making different go-to-market strategies for your different tiers and different accounts. And sales and marketing can't figure out the rules of engagement for that. And it's causing tension and friction and overlaps and gaps and just this new world. So is ABX a good thing? Yes. But is it hurting and making alignment harder? Like, I think it's helpful to realize that this does make it harder right now. It's not Nirvana promise.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's about like almost any, like implementing any large change in an organization. It's about figuring out what are the steps to get there. You're not going to change the behavior of a 20-person sales team overnight. You're also not going to change the behavior of a 20-person marketing team overnight, to be fair. Like any team, you're not going to change it overnight. And introducing too much, again, back to the idea of path of least resistance for sales teams, like if you change a dozen things that they need to do or how to talk to this account or whatever it is, they don't have any evidence that tells them that 2 of those things are going to work, let alone a dozen. You're going to flip their well-honed system totally on its side with no evidence that it's going to work, that they're going to buy, except for the marketers said so, which doesn't historically work very well, right? So it's about having, what is the vision in maybe 2025 of this well-oiled machine, getting your sales team bought in on the end state vision, and then find the wins that you can roll out slowly.
Yeah. You have to baby step it.
That they can adopt and see that it's working.
Devon, I want to ask you specifically, have I convinced you that it's hurting alignment now, but it might help later, or not yet?
I think you have convinced me that it's definitely not a silver bullet. I agree with that. I still think the idea of aligning on who specifically your audience is in this very account driven way is a helpful tool to use to get closer to alignment. But you're right. The devil is in the details, if you will, about how you execute against that gets messy very quickly and can actually cause very difficult conversations that oftentimes come back to attribution. And I'm sure we will get deep into attribution.
Also, we'll do that one next then. And may also just like hurt like people being like, this account driven world isn't working. Let's just go back to having like a person funnel and not thinking in terms of accounts. And that would be bad. The point that I'm trying to make is that you need to build in time for sales and marketing to work this shit out, because it adds complexity in it does add complexity. Like it helps, but it adds complexity because you're adding in this whole other layer, whereas you used to have contacts with people and now you have accounts, and it adds in different prioritization frameworks and different strategies. And so there's a complexity that I think shouldn't be understated, and I think people should be ready for it. And I think all of these tools, many of which I am an advisor, investor, and a big fans of, but they often guarantee the world and they don't take care of some of the internal stuff that needs to happen. So that leads us down 2 paths to our next topic in help or hurt. We can either take AI tools or we can take the other thing that I just said we could go down the path of.
Attribution.
Attribution. Let's get attribution out of the way. Attribution is a huge thing.
It's its own podcast, really.
It's its own podcast. So I just want to know if you think in general having very rigid attribution helps or hurts, or maybe I think it's, I think we know the answer that it's both, it's both, but when does it help and when does it hurt modifying the game?
I think it's a distinction between attribution and credit.
Soundbite.
The point of attribution is to inform your go-to-market model of what's working, what you should do more of, what you need to address, etc., etc. That is the reason for attribution.
But you lose the plot. People lose that plot.
Yes, absolutely. And I think people get to the point of where they're setting goals based on attribution, right? So X% of my pipeline comes from this, X% from this, and you have a goal for each of those. And what happens is that's when you get into the credit game.
It also limits thinking on how best to achieve a problem, because the journey is not linear. It's oh, we hit our inbound number, let's stop on that. Or
100%. So at Cocoon, we've been centering on pipeline goals for a very, very long time. But when we first did, it was we had marketing attributed pipeline. That was the marketing goal. We had partnerships, we had sales, etc. And immediately what was clear within a quarter of having these goals was that, marketing was crushing its goals because, of course, it was me.
The best team in the world.
The best team in the world was crushing their goals. And then, maybe, for instance, the partnerships goal might be lagging, but we didn't have the team structure or resources in place to say, oh, well, what should happen is some marketing resources should shift to support partnerships. Because the beauty of marketing is its flexibility, right? Marketing can support marketing pipeline. Marketing can also support partnerships pipeline and can support sales pipeline, right? And outbounding things.
Another argument on your side for marketers being more like cats, because depending on the cat and dog, cats are typically more flexible.
That's a great...
I'm just keeping the through line here.
You know what? That's what I always say. Marketers are flexible like cats.
Kira, I know your question was how can sales and marketing better align given all the changes going on? But actually, we're trying to answer another question, which is, are marketers cats or are they dogs? And so, we can do both. That's the beauty of this format and our skill sets. Is
we
can
contain multitudes,
both.
as does this podcast. Multitudes and milk could be the subheading of our podcast.
That one didn't work. You can't just squeeze in a milk. You gotta make the milk mentions count. Oh God. All right.
Anyway, point being, we've been for a very long time now at a shared pipeline target. I think people have a lot of opinions on shared KRs and if KRs should be owned by a single person, single team, or not.
Whole other
thing. But we have a shared pipeline goal that is shared across all of go-to-market. It is the responsibility of everyone on go-to-market to have this pipeline goal. And so if it's not coming from marketing, okay, how do we make it come from partnerships? If it's not coming from partnerships, how do we make it come from sales and actually be a lot more fluid?
Nimble.
And as a result, as a result, our pipeline makeup quarter to quarter isn't always the same, right? There's patterns, but for us, partnerships is very seasonal in a way that the other channels aren't, right? And so in one quarter, partnerships might be 40% of pipeline. In another, it might be 10, and that's okay because of the way we set the target.
Yeah, referrals, partnerships especially can tend to drive some of the biggest deals too. And you never know when you're really going to get them, and you can't really make it happen at a specific time. So it's lumpy for so many reasons. So yeah, I think even if it's not possible to have this unified pipeline view and goal, be clear how you're defining it. Because I think people get really stuck, including myself, on is this first touch? Is it last touch? Is it the last activity at MQL or now the last activity at right before they came inbound or whatever it is? And the truth is you need to look at all of those things. You need to look at how they first came in. You need to look at the journey, But like you need to be consistent about what you're actually looking at in, say, pipeline meetings. And if you want to look at two different things, how did they originally come in the door versus what happened more recently, like that's fine. But like be consistent, I think, is the other thing. Because the worst thing that can happen is when you realize you're arguing about numbers and you realize you weren't even looking at the same numbers. And then you just pissed off teams and everybody's upset about attribution. So again, there's a whole podcast on attribution, but it hurts when teams are pointing fingers, to Grace's point, trying to take credit, trying to overclaim influence and game the system. It especially hurts when compensation, specifically for SDRs, has a lot to do with like outbound meetings booked. And I think that's where good attribution systems fail, because people think that attribution and how people's commission are being figured out is the same thing, and it's not. Like your attribution system can actually be kind of different for how you're paying variable comp. Now you need to know what the numbers are, but like the attribution needs to be more fluid and you need to not get people stressed out about it. And so I was talking to a CEO of like a popular go-to-market tech company, and she was like, I don't care if I double count. I don't care if I double count or double pay commission. I don't care if I double pay commission or like give commission for something that you shouldn't get it for. Like we probably missed something that should have been attributed to them. It probably comes out in the wash. And either way, I just don't want to create these battles. And so that's like a really good principle.
I think that's so smart. Honestly, if I had to pick helps or hurts with attribution and marketing and sales alignment, I would say hurts.
Yeah, hurts.
I think
Yeah,
it hurts.
it
Like
hurts.
because people to get too caught up in it, it becomes a competition. I totally agree. Like marketing should look at the marketing channels that you use and how those perform, and always like be optimizing performance and trying to understand, the actual outcome of the things you're doing. But sales attributed versus marketing attributed versus partnerships attributed just never ends well.
Hot take here as well. I actually think that campaign level performance is more important than channel level performance when it comes to attribution.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yep, that's true.
Because a lot of times, like I always say, you have to unite fuel and engine. And when you're just looking at channel performance, you're really not taking into account the fuel at all. You're just taking into account the engine. And so if you look at campaign performance, it's kind of telling you more of the whole story. And so making sure to set that up properly and set up campaign tracking and campaign influence is actually like more important to me. Like take or leave some of the other stuff.
Especially because campaigns can be deployed via partnerships as a channel or via sales. And so, yes, not just the marketing channels per se, but really how are these programs performing?
Yeah.
If you are not watching the video right now, I just invite you to switch on over to YouTube, because Grace has just gone from like sitting podcast host to like lounging and baton twirls with her mic. And the delta between her last recording and now and her casualness and comfort level is just astounding. Like the transformation. How does one transform so quickly? Like, are you the host of Call Her Daddy? Is that what it's called? Or is it Call Your Daddy? Whose daddy are we calling? I don't know.
Her.
But like,
we're calling her
like
daddy.
Her daddy. I knew you would know.
She keeps passing the mic from one hand to another. Yeah, it's great.
Were you a baton twirler?
Maybe in a past life.
Were you a circus cat?
You don't. Oh, yes. Maybe marketers are circus cats, and that's what happens when your marketing org becomes a request factory, is you just become a bunch of performing circus cats.
Yes, there's that too. Marketing request factories. Okay, so attribution. If someone were to send in a question that's like, how do you solve attribution? Would we answer it on the pod, or would we just be like,
I don't know. I think my answer would be that's probably not the biggest problem for you to solve. Like, my bet is you are agonizing over it because somebody is making a stink. Somebody's fighting over it. The better outcome would be just don't, then spend your time on it.
I think usually there's like a root cause to why there's an issue. And usually it's a marketing and sales alignment issue on what's important and what's not important, and differences of opinion of what the strategy should be. So usually it's a strategy and alignment problem, not an actual attribution problem.
Yeah, what I will say, not to go tooting my own horn, the attribution piece, but really just like the sales marketing alignment piece is why I think marketers as revenue leaders is like incredibly powerful for making like significant change in organizations like this. This isn't just because I am one of those people and I have the best team in the world. It's correlated though. But my point being that, right, having someone sitting at the top who is seeing the holistic picture, understanding all of the intricacies of the marketing side, all the pieces it takes to get there, all the long and short term, but ultimately being beholden to that final revenue goal means that inherently the whole system is going to become more integrated. Maybe not immediately, but definitely eventually. And at the end of the day, right, as a revenue leader, you care about money out the door for salaries and ads and events and all this stuff. You care about the money you're spending, the money you're bringing in, and how fast you're turning it all around.
Business in a nutshell. Accounting 101 with Grace.
Business in a
Accounting-
nutshell.
This is now an accounting podcast.
But I think when the person thinking about the money out doesn't have the nuanced understanding of marketing, the calculation becomes a lot different. And that's when the attribution becomes more of the metric of how are we making decisions versus looking at the whole big picture as one and knowing that it's one machine.
You're more likely to think in terms of like, well, we can't move things between channels. We can just like add more, dial up, dial it down. Like your levers become more limited. So what Grace is arguing for, Grace is saying it helps when your CRO or revenue leader has a marketing background. And that is definitely a hot take. And I think one of the worst things you can do for marketing and sales alignment is to make marketers report into a CRO with exclusively a sales background.
Yes.
I'm fine if they've done a mix of things, but if they've only done sales, it's just going to be a nightmare because they're naturally going to become a service organization to sales, even if that wasn't the intention, because that's just the world that you know. And so sales is not a horizontal enough function for that to work. Is the horizontal the right thing? The shape of the function is not correct to be able to then successfully lead a marketer. And I will like die on that hill. So if you are a marketing leader with options and you get reported into a CRO and you're trying to improve sales and marketing alignment, take the option.
Take the other option.
Take the other option, whatever it is.
I can mince words, and not everyone has the options, and it's a tough market and all of those things. And maybe you're saying because your equity is going to be worth a lot, pick your trade-offs. But if it's really in isolation, I have another option, and my other option is to report into a CRO with no marketing background. I don't care who they are. Take the option. I'm going with definitive.
What if the option is a chief product officer?
I'd rather that. I think product leaders know how to build, because I think building a marketing team is more like building a product team. And so, I mean, now then we get into the challenge, and now this is a whole other thing. But when product marketing reports into product, and then revenue and growth, which I have heard founders, again, of go-to-market tech companies or marketing tech companies, a very popular marketing tech platform CEO has told me that they were going to have at scale, late stage, you're dying to know, but I can't tell you, that they were going to have product marketing report into product, and they were hiring a CRO, and growth marketing was going to report into them. And I was like, whoever you find as these marketing leaders, you're lowering the quality and the experience level that you can bring in immediately by having this structure and your alignment. I don't know I knew what they were optimizing for, but I'm like, you are over optimizing. This is an overswing.
Agree.
Strong agree.
Can you all think of a topic that I get more intense about than sales and marketing alignment? Because I cannot.
I mean, you get intense about so many topics.
There was the 15,000 words on ABX. So
sales and marketing alignment. I mean, I actually think the whole thing is broken. If I'm really getting into it, because I think all the time about this, I think marketing roles no longer make sense. I think the delineations make no sense. I think the marketing and sales breakdown doesn't make any sense anymore, to our point, about why is part of pipeline and SDR work then owned by sales? It doesn't make sense. I think we need to burn it all down and rebuild the org. And I think that is going to happen slowly, because we're not going to burn it all down. But if I was building a company from scratch and building a go-to-market team from scratch, I would do it radically differently from how it is done. And I think the companies that are doing that, like Clay, for instance, and rethinking how it's done, are going to win, because the systems are different and the teams need to be different. And that is how radical, or that is how extreme I think the shifts that are happening, the things that we're talking about, are to this. So I'll get off my high horse.
That's the mic drop.
Mic drop. It's better when someone else says it, though. So Devon,
I said it for you.
Oh, thanks, Grace.
Grace said it for you.
Should I just drop?
Grace holding her mic could do an actual mic drop.
Thanks to our partner Framer. Framer's a no-code website builder for projects and startups of any size. Over the past few years, there have been major leaps forward in the ease of designing, building, launching, optimizing, shipping websites. If you remember the old days, which I do, you used to have to get a developer and a designer, and every little update took forever, which really slowed marketing down. And Framer makes this the easiest I've seen. It just really looks and feels like a design tool. It has a much lower learning curve. It's just faster to design beautiful sites, and I think just easier for marketers to build out pages and launch sites more easily themselves. So give it a try for your next landing page or migrate your whole site over to Framer. You can visit framer.com, that rhymes with Kramer, Framer.com, and use code MKT1 to get 25% off for a basic, pro, or startup, or scale-up yearly site. All right. Couple more of these help or hurts. I'm liking this format. I think it's helping us somehow add structure with a complete lack of it at the same time.
Intriguing.
Let's talk about reporting structures. I just said we need to blow up the whole go-to-market org chart and then said nothing about how, but marketing ops. I used to see it report into marketing more, and now I'm seeing it more report into a centralized Rev Ops team. Does it help or hurt? Let's take the angle of, does it help or hurt when it reports into marketing?
I'm going to go with hurts.
I think hurt too.
Oh, wow.
I think a centralized Rev Ops team helps with marketing and sales alignment because, again, so many of these conversations come back to attribution and data and understanding what impact certain things had. And I think when you have one team that is thinking about that from a more holistic perspective and thinking about just the full funnel and the full business and not necessarily sort of seated within one team and therefore potentially somewhat biased towards that team, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Today, our Rev Ops team is one spectacular person. So she's all things Rev Ops. If we had marketing ops, they would be on a Rev Ops team with her. But importantly, she plays a role of neutral third party.
Switzerland.
And
I was trying to be today and then totally failed.
Yeah. Which is to the point of what Devon was saying, right? Is that they're working across teams, across systems to make the whole thing operate the best way it possibly can. And so in any instance where there is who does this lead go to? The sales manager doesn't decide. Our Rev Ops person makes the decision because she's the neutral third party. But anyway, if there is an attribution issue, which there isn't anymore, but back in the day when there might have been, we've already solved that one today. But Rev Ops is the decider.
With no attribution.
Yeah, we solved attribution by just eliminating it.
I'm paying attribution.
But in a world where you still have attribution of any kind. No, but you can insert, right, if there's contention between teams, having this third party entity as the decider who is deciding based on data is trusted to be not biased because everybody knows they're the keeper of the data and the system.
All right. I'm going to make a counterpoint that early on, marketing ops sometimes picks up other things, lifecycle marketing, email stuff, maybe even in some cases some ad stuff, and they help in more of a generalist growth way. There's a career pathing discussion here, much like there is with SDRs. Some marketing ops people want to be more growth marketing generalists, and some want to be Rev Ops people.
Yeah, my take is that earlier stage, I think you can be more flexible. It's not as hard for a marketing ops person who sits under a head of marketing to work very closely with a Rev Ops person who sits under a head of sales or is their own team. Whereas once you get bigger at scale, I think you just got to make a decision one way or the other. And you probably have enough true marketing ops needs that should sit within Rev Ops. And then you also have true growth marketing and lifecycle needs. And those lifecycle marketing, yes, a lot of the people who use the tooling and the systems and the data that is kind of owned by marketing ops, they're going to sit within marketing, right? But so you have to have that kind of dotted line and that really tight relationship. And yes, I think early days I've hired marketing ops / lifecycle and had that sit under marketing, even though we had a Rev Ops person. So
yes, I agree. If it's a full headcount devoted only to marketing ops, they sit with Rev Ops. If it is a / if it is a part of their job, but they are also doing life cycle or ads or whatever, then they're sitting with marketing because they're just powering those other channels that are also part of their role. So it's just a way for them to be really effective at their role as a growth marketer versus being a dedicated ops person.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into the nuances here, like then who's the Rev Ops leader. I think I'm a little less on the like definitely yes side. Actually, at I think all of the companies that I've worked at, granted, I haven't worked in a company for 5 years, full disclosure. Marketing ops reported into marketing, but I recommend now to most companies that it sits in Rev Ops. So I think that is changing a little, and we don't need to go into all the reasons why, because marketing ops as a thing is a whole other podcast. Look, we could like make seasons after season of this. By the last episode, Grace has gotten so casual. She would just like literally be in a bathtub.
I'm not going to lie to you. I was laying down during all hands today. Off video, admittedly. My back was hurting, but I was laying down. So
Professionalism at its peak. All right, Devon, what were you going to say? Devon is bringing the professionalism here.
I think part of the REM, like guys, we've got a podcast to record. I think part of the reason we see more unified Rev Ops functions and less marketing ops under marketing and sales ops under sales is because of account based, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that because of all the reasons that we're talking about. We have 2 topics left in this. We have AI tools and we have variable comp. Let's take variable comp. Let's finish it out with AI tools. And then we can say a couple final words on our biggest takeaways for how to drive sales and marketing alignment. And then we can do our game.
Curious for Grace's take on variable comp for marketers. Is that the question? Does that help or hurt?
I think with alignment helps, but you have to be really precise about the structure of the variable comp. Full disclosure, we do not do this on my team today. So if my team is listening, maybe we can talk about it.
Let's not go too in the weeds because I think we'll get too stuck on comp structures. And this truly is another podcast, and maybe we'll do it if someone so kindly sends in the question. But I think, yeah, give us the high level here.
Yeah, I think the reality is, one, the lack of comp on the marketing side can create, or lack of commission, I should say, or variable comp on the marketing side can create some amount of like resentment on the sales side to say, I brought in this deal. My work I can see directly attributed, impacted this deal. And in some cases, right, depending on your sales motion, maybe the salesperson spent 30 minutes and closed the deal and got a commission.
How is my work any different than that work?
How is my work different? Why? I know I have said the words like, why do you need like extra money to be convinced to do what's expected of you in your job? Like all the rest of us are doing our job. Why do you need extra? My opinion has changed on that, by the way.
I'll take the extra.
I know. Well, I know. But I think, right, like, when it feels like you don't have access to the extra, you're saying, I'm not getting any extra for doing my job, for exceeding my goals. Like I'm killing it. That creates a feeling of not being fair and creates more of those like attribution arguments, because it's coming down to like the pay that you're taking home that matters considerably to people and makes them feel valued and helps them benchmark against their peers. As much as we maybe wouldn't want people to do that at companies, that is what people do. It's just how it is. But my POV is identifying what are the shared metrics and then developing shared commission structures around those metrics for the top of funnel.
Variable comp
structures.
I actually ran a quick survey on LinkedIn last week on this, but it was actually interesting. I said, should B2B marketers get commission? And one answer was no. Just what do you think the breakdown was? Just sales, only growth marketing, all of marketing. There were 526 votes.
I think majority said all of marketing because I think the majority of your audience is marketers and they want in on the variable comp.
They want the cash. All right. But it's more stressful to have variable comp in some ways too. But Devon, what do you say?
Depends on how much, yeah.
I think probably like 50% said just sales or just growth marketing.
I mean, you're both kind of right. So it was 28% said just sales. Yes, but only growth market. A lot of my audience on LinkedIn is founders as well. Yes, but only growth marketing is 20%. And yes, all of marketing is 52%. I really thought that it was going to be like 50-50 sales and marketing, and that the only growth marketing and all of marketing was going to be more even and it was not.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
we'll pop this up or put this in the show notes, and in the newsletter we'll have this breakdown. But I found it interesting. I think that the tides are shifting here, but I don't want this to be an excuse to pay marketers even less base salary, because they get paid less than sales. And I think that's kind of crazy because of the skill set requirements. And so I, as much as we can think of it as additive, if that's at all possible. And you know what? The one thing I'll say though about variable comp is it is hard enough for people, and all of us have worked at an equity management company at Carta. And so we're probably better at most than explaining, I hope, total compensation to people and equity compensation. But it is so hard for people to wrap their hands around all of these different things. And it's just like another layer of the puzzle that at some point when you're like making an offer adds complexity. I don't know how much of a point that is, but it's just to say like, holy shit, it gets complicated.
Well, I think it is an important point. The other thing about variable comp is you often change the structure. Sales comp plans can change every quarter, and I do not envy that. I do envy them when they get their big, piles of money, or what did you call it, Kramer? Suitcases of money. Sure, I have an envious moment then when they're walking out of the office with their suitcase of money. I'm not envious when I think they don't even know how much money they could make next quarter because they haven't been given their plan yet. And it's like constantly being tweaked by executives and the finance team. And you're just like at the behest of that.
And maybe they don't say this out loud because I think some of them want you to believe that they're responsible for their whole journey and their destiny here. In many cases, you're not in charge of your destiny because it is, it's not a linear, singularly owned thing. And so I think if you recognize that, like as well, it's a little scary, especially with big enterprise deals and stuff like that. It's so dependent on maybe one or two big deals, and that can make it really stressful too. I think the bottom line here is if you're going to do variable comp for marketing, I think you should do it for the whole team. I think delineating the team gets messy. So I think people are right in the poll. I think it should be a smaller portion of marketing's total comp than sales. And I think it needs to be, we didn't mention this, but I think it needs to be quarterly and annual, because if you just do it quarterly, what happens is you have the short-term thinking. And the biggest reason not to do this is because marketing needs to be thinking about short and long-term, and sales is really laser focused on the quarter and the year to some extent, but that tension is good. And that short and long-term thinking is a good thing. And it is a reason for the teams to be separated and for all of us, not separated, but the tension is good. And so you don't want to take away that tension. And so I think there needs to be a yearly and a quarterly target, which maybe then makes it a little different from sales. Last thing is I think it should be on all up revenue and not on pipeline. But that's we should do an episode on variable comp. And I know that we have others in a circle of Exosana marketing leaders that have a lot of thoughts here too. So maybe we can even open it up to a little larger roundtable. Maybe this is not a podcast episode. Maybe it's a webinar. Who's to say? Who knows?
Special event.
Webinars now?
I don't like to call them webinars. I used to have a rule at Asana that we couldn't say webinar because it was like a bad word then. It's becoming more hip again. Like, it's okay now.
Are webinars hip?
I'm sorry.
Kramer, did somebody tell you webinars are hip? And if so, that person's not your friend and they lied to you.
My webinars or my virtual events or my showcases and my spotlights crush.
Your round tables.
I get 1,000 RSVPs, people want to sponsor them. People want the stuff after, for me, webinars are hip. They're working. So I've changed my tune on the webinar. If you want to write in and ask, should we do webinars?
I want you to do a webinar about running a good webinar called Webinars Are Hip, please.
Yes.
Ooh, this is why I say my job is marketing. So we're going to move on. So does all of this modern tooling and all of this stuff that's coming out, is it helping us drive alignment? Is it hurting us driving alignment? Is it making our lives easier? Is it making it more complicated? Is this a ABX thing where maybe not right now and maybe later will help?
I think it's similar to the ABX thing in that I
gave away the answer in the question.
Theoretically,
don't do
it's
that
helpful.
when interviewing people.
In practice, especially today, I think, yes, it's creating chaos. Who's using which of these tools in what ways? Some people are terrified of the tools that they're going to take their job. And so they're like hard resistors. Others are embracing full force.
If you think these tools are going to take your job anytime soon, you have not used the tools.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Marketers are safe.
maybe you can cut down on, 10, 20% of some of the work that people are doing, but it's actually creating more work because it's creating more opportunities like customization at scale that you just didn't do before, like account mapping across your entire TAM. You just wouldn't do that before. So I think, it's creating opportunities and creating more workflows and creating, in some cases, more work that should help you be able to sell more effectively. But
Yeah, but there's just so much confusion, I think, or lack of clarity.
and the tools converge more and more every day.
And everybody wants a tool that is specialized to what they need, but then the tools overlap in weird ways that you're not accounting for unless you have a fabulous Rev Ops leader who's overseeing all of your AI implementation across of go-to-market.
And I think that's a good idea. And I think this is why there is an episode on how Rev Ops is changing and all of that, because Rev Ops is being tasked with a lot of that stuff, but the teams aren't getting bigger, which is false. Those teams need to get bigger because they're really trying to roll this stuff out. And they are that sort of neutral party in theory. I know all of these tools. And I will say that, there's going to be some convergence. There already is. And I don't think it's avoid the tools right now, but I think it is recognize that they're not going to replace headcount as much as you might think.
Even if it's somewhat difficult to kind of at the beginning, and I'm not saying don't use the tools because it harms or it hurts. It's really just choose which tools you really want to try, understand what the sales team wants to use or is afraid to use, or have the conversations, decide on an approach, and try to avoid some of the chaos. But you also just you're gonna get left behind if you don't start using these things, so you do have to figure out a way to start to experiment.
All right, so we've gone through all these help or hurt topics, so we're gonna change up the framing a little bit. Do you think it's harder or easier to drive sales and marketing alignment right now than it was, say, 2 years ago?
I think it's easier.
Okay.
And I think it's because the lines are blurring, like we talked about. The teams and what they care about are overlapping more and more. I think in the short term, that creates more friction points. But over time, it creates greater alignment around shared goals when you have the backing of, I think, your founder, your CEO, whoever your leaders at the company are. It requires those people to be bought in on how things are changing. But I think companies that embrace the blurred lines, it's going to it's improving relationships. Devon made a face at me. I think she disagrees.
No, I think you're right. I was contemplating. That was my contemplative face.
I had to think about it too. Even after all this discussion, I'm still thinking about it. That's a sign of a good episode, friends. I think we nailed it.
In some ways, yeah, I think all these new tools and stuff, it's a forcing function for a marketing leader and a sales leader to get together and say, what are we going to collectively do about this? And so again, I think maybe, yeah, it's a hard problem to figure out how to get aligned with all this in this new world. But the newness of it all is kind of forcing folks to have those conversations. And maybe that's ultimately what's going to make this easier.
Like I was saying with ABX, I think we're in the messy period right now where it's a little harder because there's so much change at once. And it's hard to handle that much change at once. On that bright and positive note, anything we missed, just rapid fire?
Well, I think something worth pointing out for product marketing is we've been talking a lot about how marketing is more aligned to pipeline now. But product marketing also needs to be aligned to revenue, right? We have to help these folks close. The sales enablement part of product marketing is, not to be left behind. And so I think product marketing often can also be kind of that
glue.
Yes, thank you. That already starts to establish really strong relationships with sales just by nature of the work that they have to do to build the decks and to, build the talk tracks and the demos and all that kind of stuff. They understand that sales process potentially more deeply than, say, a growth or performance marketer, right? And so they can help connect some of those dots. But also, understanding where does product marketing begin and end, and where does sales enablement begin and end if you have that function. And if that function rolls up or sits in sales or Rev Ops or something like that, you have to make sure you have mutual alignment and understanding there as well.
Yeah, great points. And there's just so many more possibilities. There's actually so much, there's a lot of scalable things that product marketers can actually do to help sales that they couldn't do before and that used to be headaches. And I think that part is easier. All right. So Grace, anything we missed on the growth demand gen side? Sorry to pigeonhole you now that you have such a big role, but
I think on the growth side, the more growth marketers can think about sales as like an additional tool or channel lever for them to influence, the more they'll realize that like their destinies are intertwined, and like having a command over that and being able to work with sales really effectively is going to make hitting your goals, your own goals, whatever they might be as a growth marketer, a lot easier. And the whole company is going to operate better.
Okay. Yeah. I think the couple of things that I think we missed. You can do rules of engagement wrong, but you need to have rules of engagement. I mean, at a high level. I don't just mean rules of engagement, like what happens at this specific point in the marketing to sales handoff. That you definitely need. And that's more of like an ops flow chart of some kind, probably in Figma. But I mean also just like who owns what metric for these different account tiers or these different segments? What is expected of product marketing for enterprise versus expected of product marketing for, our startup segment? Like, what are the expectations of Rev Ops? There's a chart here, and I'll probably make this as a template for the newsletter that goes with this. I haven't yet, but I will. And so I think that's really important as just like how do you start here? And like, that's where I'd start. If you have this problem right now, go back and revisit that at both the zoomed in and zoomed out level. One's a Rev Ops project, one's a leadership project. The other thing is like, we talked about this, I believe it was in episode 1 about handling requests. Lots of shout outs to episode 1 right now, but know what the other team cares about. Like, know their motivations and know each individual seller's motivation as well. Go talk to, like, find your pal, find someone with a shared interest and go like learn. And I think the only other thing we didn't talk to is the importance, if we were to answer help or hurt, listening to customer conversations and all of those recorded calls that just go into the ether. Don't just take the AI insights from them, like watch a few. Like, we didn't have that at our disposal before. And that helps so much, especially if you're just starting at a company, but even if you've been there for 3 to 6 months, because things change really fast. So those are just some things I think we missed. This is the perfect partner and product for this episode's listeners. It's UserEvidence. One of the biggest requests sales asks of marketing, wait for it, make me more case studies. And according to UserEvidence, 2/3 of sellers say deals stall because they can't find the right customer evidence. But we all know it's super difficult as a marketer to get the right quotes, get credible ROI stats, and impactful case studies made. Not to mention the approvals and the waiting from the customers themselves. It can become a full-time job, but UserEvidence makes getting the customer-approved sales needs and your prospects want by automating feedback collection through surveys, your existing call transcripts, and review sites. Their AI-powered library turns that raw feedback into compelling testimonials, ROI stats, and advocate lists. Take a product tour, peruse their customer evidence library, which is obviously pretty great, or book a demo to learn more. Mention MKT1 or Dear Marketers for your first 2 months of UserEvidence for free. It's userevidence.com. Thanks for going on this long journey with us. Let's do some fun game. Our game today is Decode the Sales Speak. Now it's time for Best Marketer, where I quiz my co-hosts. I'm going to say something that sales often says, and I want you to give me what it actually means. And it doesn't have to be serious, as most Best Marketer games that we play are not. So, all right, what does sales mean when they say, I need 5 case studies by tomorrow?
Nobody thinks we're a real company.
Devs?
I think it means I'm about to lose a big deal. I'm panicking.
These leads are total shit. These are not actual quotes. I'm not quoting specific people, but I've heard all of these things multiple times.
I feel like this one is really like, I don't believe in the value of marketing is kind of what they really mean.
Damn. What do you think, Grace?
I don't know how to qualify a lead.
We don't have a shared definition of qualified. We're not on the same page about like where in the journey these people should be when they get to this point. Goes back to rules of engagement. I think also like maybe the leads are just shit.
Sometimes the leads are shit.
Sometimes the leads are shit, and be willing to admit that. Yeah, these are shit. Like if they're saying that and you go and you look and you're like, yeah, we got to do something. We got to change up what we're calling what. And we need to be using this within an account-based lens. And if they're not in an engaged account, should you even be working them? Like we got to figure this out. And now there's this lens of not only like the person or the people or the leads and contacts, but also the accounts. And so there's a lot of things to decode with that one, but I liked it. These leads are shit. I think that what's a funny answer to decode these leads are shit? I'll just give it to you. It's just, well, you're a shit sale. You're the thing not to say back.
Yeah.
Maybe you're shit at sales.
Maybe you just can't close.
Yeah. I can't
I
close.
think the reason I said that they don't understand the value of marketing is because I feels like they would say it a little differently because it is okay to say these leads are not converting or like these leads don't seem warm enough. They need more nurturing or something like that. But if they're just saying these are shit, then I'm like, okay, you don't even want to like understand what we're trying to do here for you. You know, I don't know. Maybe I responded too harshly to the
I'm gonna put
harsh
on
language.
my it wasn't too harsh. I'm gonna put on my Dear Marketers hat on this. And we are starting a merch store, but it's just not up yet. So I can't link to it yet. But I just know people can't wait to get their hands on hats like these. All right.
Myself included.
I know, Devon, I haven't sent her in like 2 months. But I put on the hat for a reason. One, it's a cool hat, and I want to pitch my future merch thing. But also I'm gonna need some more swag. That's what sales.
Oh, that's what anything sales says.
Yeah, that was the transition.
I don't know how to convince people our product is good, and so I'm just bribing them with cheap shit.
Okay, Devon.
Yeah. Also, I think all marketing does is make swag.
Yes. Or what I hope it means. Here's what I hope it means. I hope it means, hey, maybe we should do a little more brand marketing, but it probably doesn't. Optimistic point of view. Optimistic point of view.
It means that.
Well, I guess that's it on our 2-part episode about sales and marketing alignment. Thanks to Kira for asking a question so good we used it for 2 episodes. And remember, this is a 2-parter, so if you haven't listened to episode 5 yet, you can go back and listen to it to get more on sales and marketing alignment. You can also read the companion newsletter that goes with this podcast. It's not just like a recap or a transcript. It's actually like a full other piece of content where I share even more ideas that we forgot to say when we were just shooting the shit on the podcast. You can also like us, subscribe, do your thing wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks to our partners this episode, Typeform, as always, Kramer, and for the first time, UserEvidence. You can get discounts on all of those by going to our show notes. And I think I've thanked everyone. Oh, Grace and Devon, thank you for being part of Dear Marketers. And thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.